How do you build an athlete? How do you create and sculpt the best athlete possible? I've been asked this question so many times, right? She has all the skills in the world, but she's not quite athletic enough. She has all the skills in the world, but she just needs to be more athletic. Can this athleticism be taught? Is it something that can be taught, or is it something that you've learned at a young age and you kind of adapt and develop that throughout your life? Can it be taught at a later age? And I want to say that it can, to a certain extent. Athleticism can be taught because there's 5 components to every athlete. There's 5 components of fitness that can help make you more athletic, right? If you played a various background of sports, like soccer, baseball, basketball, football, field hockey, tennis, you've played all these sports, you have different backgrounds that you're pulling from to be really good, let's say, at pickleball. If you didn't play, let's say you specialized in baseball and then you're going to come over and play pickleball. Having a multi-sport background helps translate in many other areas of just pure athleticism for the sport. So when looking at creating an athlete, I look at 5 components of fitness. Those 5 components are going to be strength, endurance, mobility, agility, and speed. Okay, they're all a little bit different and they're all kind of interchangeable and similar, right? So strength is going to be the amount of total force that you can put into something, right? How strong are you, right? Like how much force can your legs put in and out against a movable object. Endurance is going to be sustained movement over time. How long can you last, right? Whether you're on the courts, how long can you last over a weekend or over a day of full of matches? The third attribute we'll go into is speed. Your first step quickness, acceleration, right? Speed is going to be in more so thinking about in a linear fashion. How quick are you? Speed is similar to strength, except it's how quickly can you utilize that force, right? So how quickly can you utilize that force over lighter loads, i.e. in sprinting, it's your body weight, which is that light load. The fourth component is going to look at agility. How quickly can you move in and out of certain positions? How quickly can you get to point A and back to the starting position, right? So think of a lot of change of direction work, a lot of cutting, sprint back and forth, pretty much changing your center of gravity, changing your center of mass. That's more so agility, where speed is more so in a linear fashion. The last component of fitness is going to be mobility, right? How does your body move in space? Not necessarily flexibility, right? That's more looking at the flexibility of just one muscle. So think about your hamstring, but more so mobility, thinking about how the body moves as a whole and the positions that the body has to be in for the needs of the sport. So is your body mobile? If not, sometimes it's not a hindrance to you and your sport. But when it comes to things like pickleball, like for example, which we'll be talking about today, you need to be somewhat mobile to get into certain and advantageous positions at the kitchen line. I'm going to take these 5 components of fitness and I'm going to look at the athlete and I'm going to see which one they need to improve in. Not just by looking at them. I wish it was that easy, but by putting them through a series of tests as well as watching them play. So what I call the eye test is just watching them play, right? So I can see by myself watching and having some small conversations that they're tired at the end of a weekend, or their endurance is starting to fail on Sunday when they're starting to play after 4 days back to back. I can see that they're slow getting in and out of cuts. They need to work on their agility, or maybe their endurance is low because their lower body strength is fatiguing out first, right? They don't have the lower body strength to sustain throughout the weekend. So it looks like it's the strength problem is masking itself as an endurance problem. That happens a lot as well. So the eye test is just watching them play, seeing what I see from my coach's eye and going from there. The other test that I will do is actual performance tests, right? So I'm not actually gauging this off of standards, right? So I worked in professional baseball before, and we would have certain MLB standards, right? Major league standards for certain tests, right? This is the major league average for this med ball throw, or the major league average for this vertical jump. So we had something to go off of. Pickleball is a relatively new sport, so we don't really have standards that we're kind of basing these things off of. So what I'm going off of is basing things off of what I've seen from other sports and what I deem necessary for that particular athlete. So when it comes to pickleball, I want to test things that are relative to the sport and that apply to the sport, right? For example, if I were training a bunch of volleyball athletes, we're probably going to do a couple different types of vertical jump testing. For pickleball, vertical jump testing is a good standard of lower body power output, which is still good, but it's not as specific as something like even a broad jump, right? Because it's more horizontal. It's not as obviously linear. Pickleball just isn't played in this up and down fashion. It's more side to side. But I want to test things that are applicable and similar to the sport. So I have a professional pickleball player she comes to me and she wants to get more athletic. She wants to win more matches, and she has other personal goals. But I want to try and create the best athlete possible out of her. When it comes to testing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some kind of upper and lower body strength testing. Whatever that looks like for you, whether it's some kind of horizontal push, some kind of horizontal pulling, I want to test those measures. Is it super applicable to the sport? Do you need to be strong in the upper body? No, but we want to build a strong athlete all around, right? Upper body, lower body. We want to build speed. We want to build agility. I want to build a well-rounded athlete. And I think upper body strength can help with put away power and counters and a bunch of other numerous things. But I just don't think it's first and foremost a huge impact factor to the game. But we're going to test it, that's for sure, because we want to be able to measure and see where we're getting. So upper and lower body strength we'll always test. We'll test some kind of speed, right? So typically, because pickleball is such a compact sport, right? You're not really moving far. It's not like soccer where you're on a field and you're running long distances. The distances are relatively short, even shorter, obviously, than tennis. So we'll do a 10-yard start test, right? So an acceleration test. That's going to test your explosiveness, which is a great measure for pickleball and just velocity as a whole. We don't really test, I don't test for pickleball max velocity. So like long distance sprinting, 40, 50, 60 yards. I don't test that. For our agility test, we'll do a couple different types of those, but the main one we'll do is a pro agility. So like you see at an NFL combine, we'll do a pro agility where it's 3 cones. They're all 5 yards apart. So 1 cone here, 5 yards apart, middle cone, and then another 5 yards apart will be another cone, 3 cones. You start in the middle, you sprint one way, you sprint all the way to the other cone, and then you sprint back to the middle. That is a pro agility test. It's a good test of change of direction, agility, changing your center of gravity, right? Like being fast in those low disadvantageous positions. Just a pure power test is going to be our broad jump, right? You can do just a vertical jump, which is a good test of lower body output. We'll do a broad jump. It's easy. I can do it on the road. When I travel with athletes, I can put down a tape measure and I can test this very easily. So we'll do a broad jump to test our lower body power. When it comes to endurance, I don't test endurance. I don't get people out there and run 300-yard shuttles. I just don't see it necessary. I work with a lot of professional athletes, and getting them to run a 300-yard shuttle or other endurance testing, I don't think the juice is really worth the squeeze, because we're going to work on work capacity and endurance building in the beginning anyway. So we're going to be building that, and I see it going to grow. And I know that their work capacity and aerobic capacity is going to increase anyway. I don't see the benefit in doing that test, and because they're usually pretty brutal or tough. Like I said, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, but if you want to argue that, drop something down in the comments. So the last and final test that we'll always do with all of our athletes is a movement assessment. So it's just basic body weight movements, like body weight squats, overhead squats, segmental flexions, right? Touching your toes, lifting up your leg. It's just a test where we're going to see your hip flexion, your hip internal and external rotation, shoulder internal and external rotation, how your body rotates. Can your T-spine rotate? We're going to test everything of how your body moves. So this gives us a holistic picture into any limitations that you may have with your body, as well as things that we can work on that are super beneficial to pickleball, as well as now we have a full picture, right? I've watched you play. I've tested the 5 components of fitness. I have looked at your movement screen, right? Now I really understand how to make you a better athlete. And I'm going to take all of that information and I'm going to see which buckets are the least full, right? Let's say your endurance bucket is extremely full, right? You're in shape, you'd like to do a lot of long distance work, you like to run and condition, but you've been lacking in your strength work and speed and agility work, right? You haven't been doing a lot of the fast twitch work. Those are the buckets that we want to fill. Those are the buckets that we're going to attack first, right? There's going to be progressions and programming and periodization to get there in the best way, but I'm not going to jump in and fill buckets that are already full, right? I want to fill the ones where you're lacking. So that's where the individualized approach comes into play. So when it comes to building an athlete, building athleticism, you need to test the components of fitness, right? Test all the components of fitness. What are they lacking in? Give the athlete exactly what they need. Most of the time it's going to be, right, if you're trying to create more of an athlete, when I say it like that, it doesn't mean that it's different. When you're trying to create more of an athlete, most of the time it needs to be a lot of agility work, speed work, things of that nature, because most sports are played fast and it's a lot of fast twitch work. So doing a lot of that is going to help you. But remember, strength is pulled from agility and speed work. So strength is the foundation and base of that. So that's why it usually takes time. You have to build the strength first. Look at what the athlete needs. Component number 1, necessary, most important. It's going to be, what does the athlete personally need? Number two is going to be, what does the sport need? What does the sport demand of you? Does the sport demand super mobile hip flexion, right? Super mobile hips. Does the sport demand that you have to rotate all the time? Think about baseball. It's a rotational sport. You have to have significant thoracic rotation. Similar, a little bit like pickleball. If you want to have a two-handed backhand, you have to have thoracic rotation. You have to be able to rotate at the spine. Think about what the sport demands, number two. And then meet the athlete where they are. If you can create an athlete, I promise you, if you individualize each approach to the specific athlete, to their specific sport, you can create a beast on the court. So when it comes to you and your fitness, whether you're trying to be a professional pickleball player or you just want to maximize your performance, you want to maximize your fitness levels, what buckets need filling for you? Is it your strength, your agility, your endurance, your mobility? What buckets need filling for you? Comment down below where you need to improve. Don't forget to help out our show. If you enjoyed this episode, smash the like button for me, subscribe to the channel. It helps with all the Google and YouTube analytics. Thanks for tuning in.